So what we have here is supposed to be a capital city, and I've got some plans for making it feel that way, starting with a road network. And we've already started working on roads and paths around the ancient capital, but I think this place needs to feel a little bit more grand. And I wanted to connect the Greatbridge to the pathways and roads of the capital in a way that felt structural. And so what I've done is I've carved out this giant valley over here, and today we're going to be working on this valley in particular, but immediately to the left as you walk up this road, or the right as we're facing this way, we cross this canyon over here. We have this kind of ravine cut into the landscape, a few creepers milling around down there, and I have plans maybe for that as well. But this had to be bridged by, a single bridge, a single pillar. It's really all we needed. But I want to decorate that a little bit more and make that feel a little bit more, structural. Maybe a little more detailed anyway. But once you reach this point here, there is a road that brings you down into the valley in which the capital is built. It's kind of a valley, at least. The hills aren't exactly particularly steep, but it makes a fair amount of sense. And I thought, once we put this road in, it could be a good way of splitting up different districts within the capital itself. So here we have the road that kind of curves around to the right and is going to connect up with the more built-up area of the capital over there. But over here on the left, we have a wheat field beginning to take shape, and maybe some more farms can take shape around here for either animals or crops or a mixture of the two. There is yet another ravine over there that I will probably have to bridge, and we can start to bring a little bit of structure to this. Hello? Oh, hello. I'm not sure if this has been shown in anyone else's video, so I might have to ignore that for the time being. But in any case, we have here a wheat field starting to grow up, and I like the idea of farming having been really important to this culture at some point or another, and maybe the fields have started to become completely overgrown at this point, so we can work on that because nobody's around to tend the farms anymore. But I do like the idea of farming having been a big part of the culture over here, and there being a road that separates them by having this big raised walkway, but then of course a tunnel through it that reaches through to the other side. This is currently hollow. I don't have anything really planned out for it quite yet, but I like the idea of them still feeling connected, and I want to add more structural elements like this to the area. A few more bridges, a few more raised roads like this, and I'm working on the details. It's still a little bit rough right now, but I want to get a couple of designs figured out in a creative test world before we bring them over to the server and make them happen. But there are areas where bridges and aqueducts may even suggest themselves. There are a few other bits and pieces that I want to throw in here, and this avenue is the one that I really want to get started with. This road that we've cut through the hill on this side from the Greatbridge Gatehouse over to this area, where players can stand and take in a view of the ancient capital from up here behind the statue above the catacombs, and you can see a little bit more of the stuff I've built. But once again, we're restricting sightlines so that you can see bits and pieces, and when you walk out here, it becomes a reveal, kind of like the reveal in that opening section where the statue pops into view and then you see the road curving around to the right. This avenue is something I've been thinking about quite a lot, and I want to line it on either side with either buildings or statues or pedestals of like long forgotten monuments or something like that. I kind of want there to be a bit more structure to this place so that, as I said before, when you walk in here from the road, when you can't really see what's happening either side as you walk through the gate, and then when you step through, suddenly there is stuff on either side of you and it just pops out. I'm going to try my best to make that stuff that is concealed behind the gatehouse towers as well, so you can't really see it from the outside if you are flying towards the Greatbridge. And eventually, when we hop up here, there is going to be a wall around the outside of this, because what is the point of having a gatehouse like this if there is no wall attached to it? So it's going to feel like the capital was a little bit cut off at one point, but we can do all sorts of stuff with a wall in terms of ruining it, making it feel run down, or maybe it's been assaulted at some point by siege weapons and there are bits broken out of it. There's lots we can do. As always, what it comes down to is instilling this place with a sense of history. And so I'm going to spend a bit of time remodeling these cliffside walls into something that feels like it represents that history a little better. And as this road curves away into the rest of the capital, we're going to find stuff to connect it up to and build structures around the outside that are really going to help this thing feel at home. So with all that work done, the avenue, as I've been thinking of it, is finally coming together, and I haven't quite figured out what each of these large cuboid structures is going to be, but I think some of them might be pedestals, some of them might be buildings. I think a lot of them are also going to be overgrown, because the notion here is that this kingdom has been around for a while, maybe some nature has started to reclaim some of it. But after all of the geometry of this and getting each of these to like pretty much exactly the same height on either side, which we might change, but I kind of like the visual of it for the moment, I got to the point where the road over here on the left-hand side felt a little bit too haphazard. It felt a little bit too random. And so I've decided to replot it, and at that point, an epiphany occurred to me. Because, of course, the road as it is down here is kind of winding. It follows the landscape a little bit, but I was just building it freehand. I was kind of organically shaping it, and it didn't look all that good. But what if we wanted to replot it with a more mathematical curve that made a bit more sense? Building it as basically a semicircle was not going to work, though, because I didn't want it to have the same dimensions. I wanted the curve to tighten as it got around into that part there. Otherwise, the curve would go over that ravine, and I have other plans for some of the stuff in this area. So then, if you look down from the air, you will see what I ended up doing. And this has been an epiphany for the way I think about this area in general, because what we've done with the curve that is here now is follow the golden ratio. The first half of the curve is one size, and then the second half of the curve is half the size, and then the next half of the curve could be half the size again and again and again. We end up with a spiral that tightens inwards, and we're probably not going to take it that far because I honestly like the road just straightening out at that point and leading down into the city. But the idea is that we follow the golden ratio, and this works for so much about this empire, because the way I foresee this empire having happened is that at certain points this was considered the golden age of this area, this whole land that we are surrounded by, with people gathering and bringing the best of science and technology and literature and warfare and everything that you need to make a great civilization in this kind of time period that we're working with. Obviously, things here are not exactly super modern, a little bit more, I don't know, medieval, fantasy, classical, whatever you want to think of it as, really. But at the time, this place represented civilization at its height, and the golden ratio is one of those things that shows up in a lot of art as an example of why art is really pleasing to the eye. You see a lot of studies online of how Renaissance painters ended up using the golden ratio in composition for their work. It's a really important mathematical principle, and the more I think about it, the more we can apply some of this to some of the stuff I'm building in this area. And so from this point forward, the golden ratio is going to be one of those things that pops up more and more. But this is the beginning. And yes, I recognize that in doing this, I have ratioed myself. In fact, the funniest thing is this, when you look at it from above, kind of forms an L. So we literally have L plus ratio going on in this empire. And everybody who is, following Zoomer Twitter right now is just probably laughing their heads off. But anyway, we have a lot of new concepts that I'm introducing here, all thanks to wanting to plot out this curve in a way that made sense for the area. And so we're going to expand the road based on this now, and it's going to line up with this part of the road a little bit more evenly. I kind of wanted to expand my vision for what was happening over here, probably broaden this road out a little bit, and just make sure that it followed the mathematical curve that we're working with here. We can still keep the same concept that this road has, where there's farmland on one side of it and buildings on the other, and probably a tunnel between them, but I think the road is going to end up a bit wider. This is what I've plotted here is basically going to be the middle, because obviously it starts kind of in the middle of the road that I cut through the valley over here, and whilst this road, it kind of connected on a diagonal before, now that this is a plotted out curve, I want it to connect a little bit more centrally here, and we'll expand it out to either side, which is going to take a bit of careful calculation, but we should manage to do that. And then as the curve rounds this corner, it actually touches the inside of this part of the curve that I was freehanding. So we're going to have to take down a lot of this and do a lot of correction, but most of this is hollow. It's not like I've built the entire thing out of solid stone. If I dig on down through here, you'll find that, yeah, pretty much all of these are hollow and lit up so that mobs don't spawn. In fact, a few of them probably not that well lit up. And if you want another peek behind the scenes at the way I've been thinking about this place, there is a song by an artist called Woodkid, who you probably know from doing the music for a couple of Assassin's Creed game trailers back in the day. But one of those songs, which I heard completely independently of the trailers, is called The Golden Age. And the way the song is kind of phrased, the way the lyrics are written, is much more about a personal story of some people who were children growing up together, recognizing that they're becoming adults and the loss of innocence. But there's this repeated line in the chorus, or the kind of refrain of the song, that just says, "But the golden age is over." And I've been imagining that song, I've been listening to that song in my head, basically, ever since I came upon the idea of the statue and really started working on the identity of this place. And so if you wanna imagine what's playing in my head anytime I design stuff like this, go look up that Woodkid song. I'll link it in the description even. I think it's a really, really cool song. But now I need to go away and actually expand this curve into something that I can build here, which is gonna mean tearing down all of this stuff, probably moving the beacon so I can tear it all down a little quicker, and then putting it all back up again, adhering to this curve, which is going to take me a while, and I don't know if it's going to make that good of a time lapse, so I'm probably just going to cut away, and when I come back, this is going to look a little bit more precise. And here on the other side, what a difference that has made. I did do a couple of recalculations, because it turns out I was a little off on my thinking about what the golden ratio was. We have a 1 to 1.6 translation, basically, so this shorter curve is actually slightly larger than I initially plotted it, but overall, this is looking phenomenal. Something about the way I freehanded it before really didn't feel like it had been designed by the great architects of the world. It felt a little bit too thrown together, and so this now feels much more beautiful as a result. I really love it. And the stair pattern around the outside even feels better as a result, because it feels like it's a little bit more geometric and measured out instead of just being thrown in there. And I love the way this feels to walk down, although right now it needs a bit more texture, and it also needs some lighting underneath here. It's kind of a mob farm right now, actually. There are still a few torches from our initial run through here. I could almost turn this into a dungeon or something if I wanted to, but I don't think I will. This central wall is actually the central line of the road, the first curve that I calculated, the first golden ratio curve with the edits that I made, and it could technically be broken through, like I could break through to there. Obviously, there's some things on the other side. It turns out, fair amount of creepers down here, but we come out into the sunlight over here, which is where the road is going to straighten out and slope downwards and then connect up to a system of roads that's going to take you around the capital. So right now, it's kind of facing into the side of the museum building over there, but the road can split off in different directions from here. And just putting this here as a reminder of the golden ratio has actually got me thinking about where else we can use that ratio in what I'm constructing over here. And I'm wondering if maybe we can keep that 1 to 1.6 ratio whilst we are working on the avenue of buildings that appear on your left and your right as you come out through the Greatbridge gates. Or maybe we can use it to plot other builds here in the town, or the roads, or something like that. This is probably more mathematics than I have ever ended up using in a Minecraft build, but personally, I really like what that contributes to the theme of this area. And from above, it really feels like this area has more of a shape now, with that majestic curve out there, the lines of these buildings coming through from the Greatbridge, the statue and everything. It's starting to take shape now. But I do have to work on a little bit of the farming area over here, which still has a lot of land to it. It's still got a fair amount of space back here, and I'm wondering if we should turn that pillager watchtower into a windmill or something. But I like the idea of there being a vineyard of sorts on the slopes of these hillsides, and a few more crop growing areas, a few more farms around here, just to give the place a feeling of life, and then we can overgrow all of that stuff as though it's been left unchecked and has grown wild in the meantime. Meanwhile, here on the road, pristine though it looks now, I still want to add a lot of detail, and I want to start ruining some aspects of this. I want to have some areas where the handrail has broken out, maybe some of the masonry has crumbled away, and perhaps a cart or something like that has got stuck. The horses have run wild, the cart has gotten loose, and it's careened off the side of here, only to be left hanging by a couple of wheels. If we can do that with the scale that we're working working with here, I'll be very, very happy, but I think I need to go and draft that in a creative world rather than trying to freestyle it in survival. All in all, though, I'm very happy with this, and that's where we're going to leave this episode for today. I do have a couple of other behind-the-scenes things coming up, one of which has been partially discovered already, but the others of which are still in progress. So I'm sorry there haven't been too many videos from me, but hopefully we'll be able to get a few more out really soon. And that's where we're going to leave this episode of Empire's SMP. Thank you so much for watching. My name has been Pixlriffs. Don't forget to leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you folks soon. Take care. Bye for now.